thanks for joining us for another episode of Two Travel Dads podcast, where today we are talking about the Bay of Fundy.
So much fun.
Great fun. Visiting it from the Nova Scotia side. So a lot of times when you start to research the Bay of Fundy, you will hear about or read about visiting the New Brunswick sites all along the bay, which I think we should probably actually cover what the Bay of Fundy is. Did you know what it was before we went up there?
No, it just sounded like a fun place to go visit.
But you didn't actually know what it was?
Nope.
Thank you for trusting me to plan a cool trip.
Well, you told me. I mean, like after I didn't know, then you just told me right away.
Yeah.
So then it sounded really cool.
So if you don't know what the Bay of Fundy is, it is this part of the Atlantic Ocean that goes in between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. And it is where the highest, most aggressive tides in the world happen. So I think, gosh, what is it? It's either 50 or 60 meters difference between high tide and low tide at certain times. And it's kind of crazy the way that it moves in and out and the little coves that it drops from. It's kind of bonkers, and we got to witness it. But so that's what we're talking about today is Nova Scotia sites for experiencing the Bay of Fundy. So do you want to start with the not so exciting but really cool Annapolis end, or do you want to start with the crazy cool, awesome Tidal Flats and Red Cliffs down at Blomidon? Where do you want to start?
Let's go ahead and get the Annapolis Valley region out of the way.
Okay. So the first spot that, if you're visiting Halifax, it's really easy to take a road trip along the South Cape of Nova Scotia. And where that's going to take you, for our purposes, is out to the Annapolis Valley, which is kind of it's the birthplace of Canada, or the cradle of Canada is what they also call it. It's where some of the first European settlements happened. So Annapolis Royal is actually a really cool little town. What would you say the highlight of Annapolis Royal is?
I think it was that cute little lighthouse that we saw, like from the 1800s. They're so short and stumpy.
It's true. So
They kind of look like they should be in like a local amusement park that has a mini golf.
yeah, it's true. So
But it's historic.
So Nova Scotia has over 100
Very cute and
lighthouses,
stumpy.
and a lot of them are, just like you said, cute and stubby. And a lot of them
Stumpy.
are stumpy?
Stumpy.
Stumpy,
Like a stump.
stubby? I don't know how
Stump.
that's different. Oh,
STUMP versus STUBBY.
okay. So stumpy.
Mhm.
I mean, it is kind of actually like a tree stump.
Yep.
Anyways, so there's lots of these wonderful little lighthouses all over Nova Scotia. And the town of Annapolis Royal has one too. It's actually part of this really wonderful little waterfront park with kind of like a promenade sort of area and lighthouse and historic sites. But yeah, you can find them all around the Nova Scotia coast. And in Annapolis Royal, it's one of the first towns that was settled across the bay. Not the bay even. What was it? The harbor.
What body of water?
It was the Annapolis Harbor. Man.
Is it HARBOR or HARBOUR?
BOUR,
Okay.
because we're
Just
talking
wanted to
about
clarify.
Harbour. We're talking about the Canadian version of a harbor.
It's my favorite place.
It is your favorite place. So many colors. Anyways, so across from Annapolis Royal is Port Royal, which was the original fort that was built. It's actually really cool. It's a National Historic Site that you can visit. And when you go there, there's living history.
No Jack Sparrow, though.
No, because it's not that Port Royal.
Oh.
It's not the Caribbean Port Royal.
Got it.
That's a fictional place. This is a real place. I don't know why.
There you have it.
He's not going to be on every podcast episode. Anyways, so Annapolis Royal is pretty cool. It is a cute town to walk around. It actually even has rainbow sidewalks, like pride sidewalks, which was really kind of surprising. And what a gem to find in this rural town in the Maritimes. I didn't expect that. Anyways.
Well, what I found actually as we were in that part of Canada was that they're really progressive there, meaning that we talked about this before in a previous episode about how they really are all about
It's easy
the
to find.
environment.
Yeah.
And they've got there's no straws. They're eco-friendly, and obviously they support all kinds of different people and cultures. They're warm and friendly, and it's just not in Halifax. It's kind of spread throughout the area, coast
Yeah.
to coast, really.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, Nova Scotia was wonderfully progressive, which was awesome. And it was reflected by the people we met and the towns we visited. Yeah, it was great. Um, Anyways, getting back to this, though. Port Royal, not the Caribbean version. Cool National Historic Site and a great place to learn about history, see some living history, and then move on up the coast to see more of the Bay of Fundy. So this is kind of unique to our trip to Nova Scotia, but something we discovered, and this is probably our strongest, most safety conscious tip we can offer anybody who is planning on doing a road trip around Nova Scotia, is to download your offline maps for Google Maps, Apple Maps, whatever it is you're using, and then look at them in advance of actually going on your little road trip. So as we were going destination to destination on the North Shore along the Bay of Fundy, we were trying to get to Margaretsville. There in Margaretsville, if you heard that, that was Chris cracking his neck.
Oh, did that happen?
Yeah, that was very audible.
Oh, apologies.
Good times.
I feel much better now.
I'm so glad. Anyways, what I was saying is we were looking for this town called Margaretsville because it has a lighthouse, has a really cool shore, another great spot to watch the tide come in and out at Bay of Fundy. And we had followed our Google map on our way there between destinations. And what it did was, instead of taking us on the main highway, it took us on... I don't remember what the actual signifier was, what it was actually called, but it was basically... It was the snowmobile route for Nova Scotia highway system. Do you remember? What was it called?
It was just called a road of some kind.
It was not a road.
No, well, okay, but Google Maps said, take a right on blah, 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 blah. And so Google thought it was a road and advised us to travel down it to get to our next destination. And we did. And already I could tell, okay, this is kind of an off-road experience. And we continued down, and then there was the one spot we were supposed to take a right, and it kind of went downhill a little bit. I was like, I don't think that we should go down there. Bob's like, I got it. We got it.
Yeah, so...
And we didn't have it.
Needless to say, started down that little hill just a little bit. Once I actually started, I realized, no, this is not going to work. And tried to stop.
Mind you, we were in a Dodge Charger, which has
it's the worst.
rear
it's not
wheel drive.
Car. Yeah, it was bad.
Horrific.
So, anyways, we got stuck on this really steep downward slope in rural Nova Scotia. But thank goodness for the Canadian Automobile Association. From the time we got stuck until we were completely rescued and back out on the main highway, it was less than an hour and a half.
It's pretty impressive.
It involved us walking with the kids through the Nova Scotia forest with
It's beautiful.
beautiful fall leaves.
Got some really great pictures.
Oh yeah, actually, those are some of the best pictures we got. Was wandering through the forest, and yeah. Anyways, so moral of the
Great
story.
cell coverage too.
There surprisingly was great cell phone coverage. Moral of the story, though, keeping on track, was make sure that if you are planning a road trip through Nova Scotia, because they do have these snowmobile routes that are a part of the map system, be sure to actually review your route before you go so that you don't end up in a situation like us. So, yeah.
Yeah. Or if you do end up in a situation like us and you're going down what seems to be an off-road vehicle and you're still on a flat level surface, just turn around and head out.
Anyways. Moving on. So that was while we were looking for the cool little town of Margaretsville, which isn't huge, but like I said, it's a great spot for watching the Bay of Fundy bring in its tides and rolling back out. It's actually another great spot to, they've got vacation rentals all along this really adorable coastline. So if you're looking for that little slice of Cape Cod in Nova Scotia, they do it in the summertime where they open up parts of the town for rental. And check out the show notes because there's some more information there about how you can find that. But yeah, Margaretsville. Not huge, but super cute.
No, I blinked and then we were there. I was so glad that I had my jacket because it was really cold.
I know. Well, so another thing, if you're visiting for fall colors, the fall colors peak in early October, in Nova Scotia, and it is absolutely worth it to be there for it because, unlike what we have here in the Pacific Northwest, it is I don't know how to describe it besides just like off the hook.
No,
Like the,
I mean, the colors were amazing. You
yeah,
just have to be prepared with your clothing,
yeah, that's true.
right?
Yeah, and with your road trip route,
Yeah, that
but
too.
doing a road trip on the North Shore, checking out all these Bay of Fundy sites we're talking about, you get to see everything from farm valleys with sweeping hills colored with every type of deciduous tree you can imagine, and red barns and white churches, and it's exactly what you would expect and hope to find in the Canadian Maritimes. So, not getting too far off track, but that was one of the highlights of getting lost and trying to find Margaretsville was all the fall colors. So, um, but the next place we're going to talk about, I think this was your favorite spot, yeah?
I don't know which one. Where are you going?
Hall's Harbor.
Hall's Harbour was amazing.
Most random and cool spot.
It was a little tiny nook on our drive, and it was Bob chose it because he knew that there was a little restaurant there from a local seafood company there in Hall's Harbor that had some lobster dishes, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it was this really beautiful little marina, this little spot. But what was interesting about it was in the marina, when we got out of the car and you looked at all the boats, they weren't floating; they were just all on the ground,
Literally sitting on just like a bank of mud.
just in the muck. And so we walked around, we took a look at the at the bay and everything, and then walked back to the little shack to go get some lunch. And it's
I don't know if
interesting.
it was really a
It wasn't a
shack.
shack. It was kind of, well, it was the seafood operation place.
Yeah.
With a little gift shop, and then across from the
A
seafood
lot
operation, the
of
gift
live
shop.
crustaceans in the gift shop.
Well, I hope there was a lot because I mean, you feed a lot of people. And across from that was like their food hall. And so at this place, you actually go and you order at the gift shop to place your order for what food you want to eat. And then you go over to the little food hall and they'll bring your food and stuff to you.
And this place we're talking about, it's called Hall's Harbor Lobster Pound. So jot that down or pop back to the show notes to take a look at it. But Hall's Harbor Lobster Pound is awesome.
Oh, it's amazing. And I was so excited to go here because I knew that the seafood was going to be absolutely delicious.
What'd you get?
Well, it was so hard to choose because I really wanted to get the traditional, like, full on lobster meal and enjoy that because why not? I mean, you're in the Maritimes and lobster is everywhere. But of
Literally
course,
lobsters everywhere. When we flew into Halifax, they have lobster tanks in the airport. In case you didn't get enough lobster while you were there, so that when you fly out, you can have lobster to take home. It's crazy.
yeah. But just like Gordon Ramsay says, ask the server, what's your favorite dish? Like, what do you eat? What do you like? What do you recommend? And so I asked the lady there, I said, hey, so this is what I'm thinking about. It's like, why not get lobster here? She's like, I really love the lobster grilled cheese sandwich. And I was like, tell me about that.
And kind of the standard whenever you're in any of these restaurants in the Maritimes is to get like the lobster roll or get like an actual like half lobster, whole
Yeah.
lobster, whatever. But yeah,
Anything with lobster.
Yeah, she went a different
But this
way.
lobster grilled cheese, it was on white bread, just like in like kind of a Texas toast style. And it had Havarti cheese and then this cream filling. And that cream filling, I think, is what did it. That cream filling is like this cream cheese with minced onion and tomato. And then it had fresh lobster on top. So imagine all of that Havarti cheese, that amazing cream cheese filling, and lobster just sandwiched between Texas toast. It was awesome. And then with a great garden salad.
It looked really messy.
No, it wasn't. Nothing dripped out. It all held its
But
form.
no, it looked like it was going to be really messy.
But it was
and-
so good. What was messy was Bob's lobster
Oh,
poutine.
yeah.
That was messy.
So, well, because I was like, I don't know what to get, and hadn't been eating meat at all, but I had to get lobster because I mean that's where we were, and I wanted to be able to like understand and experience this whole lobster culture that is basically the lifeblood of the Bay of Fundy. So I went ahead and I ordered the lobster poutine, and if you don't know what poutine is, it is delicious French fries, like fat French fries, covered in some sort of gravy. So you can get all sorts. And when you are in Nova Scotia, you can get lobster poutine, and it was just like a cheese sauce, not quite like a Alfredo, but
It was a lobster cream sauce.
is that what it
A
was?
lobster cream sauce, and it had chunks of lobster, and also what's signature to poutines is cheese curds.
Oh, the cheese curds, and
Oh,
because
they were
the cheese
squeaky.
sauce was so hot, by the time I like got maybe like a third of the way into my poutine, the cheese curds were stretching to ridiculous lengths, like 3 to 4 feet above my plate as I was trying to eat, which was the most entertaining thing ever for the kids.
Yeah.
Good times.
And the kids were super excited because they were able to get hot dogs.
Oh yeah, I mean they are connoisseurs.
But while we were enjoying that delicious lunch, all of a sudden you look outside and you look back at the same boats that were sitting in that muck, and I don't know, 45 minutes. They were now
Not
like,
even. It was less than that. It was maybe a half an hour at the
and they're
most.
floating.
Yeah.
So the water rushed back in, right, because of these like crazy tides that Bob was talking about. But then the boats were just like floating, and so you could just watch that change happen, which is just crazy to see.
Yeah, so it, like I said, the Bay of Fundy, it has the strongest, craziest, most insane tides on Earth, and Hall's Harbor is really one of the best places to observe it on a short time frame. So, like Chris said, boats sitting on the mud. Next time we saw them, they were floating. Watching the tides roll in, you're not seeing these enormous waves, but literally you can watch the sheer volume of water just rise before your eyes. It was
Fills up.
awesome. So, anyways, I know that was a lot to cover for literally the smallest town I think we've ever been to on any trip. But
Oh, but it was so perfect. I
It
did
was
want to see
amazing.
Popeye and olive oil. I didn't.
yeah, no,
But
you
it
got to
felt
go
like
to
that type
Malta
of
for
place.
that. Popeye's Village is in Malta, so that'll be a trip for next year. So another spot, and this was, I think, my absolute favorite. That it was Blomidon Provincial Park, and whenever we go on a trip, I do as much research as I can to find either the best places to catch like really good photos, or the places that the kids are going to find the most interesting, or something that's just kind of bizarre. And Blomidon, I just kept on seeing all these beautiful photos, but all the information I found said, nope, this is closed. This is closed. You can't access any of this. I was like, no, we've got to be able to do that. So we drove all the way to Blomidon, which is about 2 hours north of Halifax. So it's like if you look at it on the map, it doesn't look that crazy far, but it's winding, and you're going through farm fields, and like I said earlier, there was picturesque, perfect white chapels
Super beautiful.
surrounded by like farm fields and fall colors. Like you, we could not have planned it better. But as you approach Blomidon, you start to see these weird crevices and valleys in the middle of all these fields, and it is the mouths of these streams that join up with the Bay of Fundy. And because the tides are so insane, even though we were 5-10 kilometers inland from the bay, you still have these 15-foot mud walls going up these stream valleys. It was really bizarre. It's difficult to understand without seeing a picture, so make sure you check out the blog to see exactly what we're talking about. But it was amazing. So like just driving up to Blomidon Provincial Park, we knew that something cool was going to happen, and thank goodness we were there at low tide, because low tide was the key. So we got there, and I think the best site you're gonna find, and there's lots of them, but the best site and what we were fortunate enough to get to visit was the Red Cliffs. And how would you describe that whole setting? I feel like it was out of Game of Thrones, only there was nothing in Game of Thrones that was even slightly like it.
Yeah, that's why I would say it was more Martian-like.
Martian, yeah.
Like if I could go to Mars or something, like I feel like that was more of the landscape that you could see if Mars really had water, because the sand was red, and it had beautiful ripples throughout the sand, and the tide was so far out.
Yeah.
I mean, don't just say like the tide was out, like the tide was really far out.
The tide was so
And-
far out we couldn't see where the edge of the waves were lapping.
Yeah, but you could just walk out forever, and what's really cool is that the water looked like this aqua blue color with this red sand with these red cliffs, and so that's why it was very Martian like. and you just felt like you were on a different planet. But we did have to be really careful because those tides can come back in so quickly.
Like if you get distracted and you start walking out too far, if that tide comes in, you're going to be stuck on a sandbar and you're going to have to very quickly trudge through waist high water. So, safety first. But it is amazing. So if you can visit as the tide is still going out, that would be ideal. So check tide tables. But the other thing that you didn't mention that I thought was super duper cool was as we were walking on the beach, there were waterfalls pouring onto the beach, which I've never been anyplace else that had something like that. I mean, McWay Falls down in the Big Sur coastline does something like that on this beautiful little cove, but this at the Red Cliffs at Blomidon Provincial Park, there was, I don't know, probably what, 5, 6
I
waterfalls.
didn't know where the water was coming from.
It was, yeah, it was bizarre. There was just waterfalls pouring off of these striking red cliffs onto this beautiful red sand and winding through, and it was one of the most unique places we've ever been. I loved it. It was amazing.
The kids loved it too because they got to just run for like a long time on the sand, and they kept trying to find crabbies. I don't remember finding a single crab.
Yeah, there was
no
It was
real
weird.
rocks or anything to turn over.
I wonder
no
if it's
barnacles.
because of the red sand and the mud around there. If maybe it's just not conducive to many snails or crabs or anything like that. Clearly, like the Bay of Fundy is the place for lobster, but even like as the tide was so far out, I didn't see any sort of.
Actually, I didn't see any wildlife.
Yeah. Well, when we saw eagles, we saw 2 eagles circling above us. That's right. There was eagles, but besides that, no. It was stark. It was Martian.
Yeah,
It was.
but it made for some really
Good job
cool
finding a
pictures.
good way to describe it. Yeah, no, super duper cool. And I would say next trip to Nova Scotia, I would like to camp at Blomidon Provincial Park and experience it for a couple days and do the hiking and visit it every day at low tide.
Was the hiking at Cape Split the one thing that we didn't get to do?
We didn't get to do it because it's
That's
not
it's a
necessary.
private park, right?
No, Cape Split is public.
Oh, well, there was that private park that we did want to go check out that had access to some cool caves, I think.
Oh, yeah,
and some
that's a
other
different
cool...
that's different podcast, different day.
Oh, sorry.
That's on
Jumping
the South
ahead.
Shore.
I'm jumping
That's on the
ahead.
South Shore. Tune
Well,
in
stay
for that
tuned.
one. No, Cape Split is
Cliffhanger.
it's just east of Blomidon Provincial Park. It's across that part of the bay from it, and that is where you can actually watch the most aggressive portion of that tide. Like I said, it's the most aggressive in the world, but that's where it's most visible, and that's where they had actually put some tide turbines for generating power, and they were eaten up on their first time being out there because the water was so aggressive that the turbines were destroyed. So, fun fact, tidal energy is something huge to be harnessed, and Nova Scotia works on doing that offshore. But the Bay of Fundy is too aggressive, so they can't do it right there. But you can hike the 9-mile trail out to Cape Split, where you go through the different tidal forests out to just all kinds of rock formations. And if you can catch it at the change of the tides, you can watch what looks like a raging river going between all the rocks. It's kind of crazy. So next time that we're there, or at least when the kids are a lot older and ready to do a kind of intense hike, that is at the top of our list. And if you're visiting without tiny kids, gosh, make it happen. It looks amazing, sounds amazing. Our tow truck driver, I can't say that. Our tow truck driver, he said that it is the best hike in Nova Scotia, and he's lived there his whole life. So I'm gonna trust him. Next time, was there anything else on the North Shore that you thought was exceptional that we didn't cover?
Not except for that one thing that we'll cover in the next episode.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Some other highlights though to check out is in the Annapolis Valley, which that's where we were first starting to talk about. It's also a wine region. So Nova Scotia has their own wine culture, and they've got all kinds of different spots for you to participate in agritourism. So there's at least 4 wineries that are located right there, and all of them, of those 4, are estate vineyards. So that's pretty cool. And then some other spots that you can check out on the Bay of Fundy include Cottage Cove Provincial Park. That's where we've got actual tide pools, which there's not a ton of them up on the bay, so that's a special spot. There's quite a few lighthouses, and then a really, really special spot very close to the New Brunswick border is the Joggins Fossil Cliffs. So they have pulled a couple interesting things out of the cliffs there, including, I think there was a plesiosaur, and then all kinds of shells. So super neat to find. So if you have any questions about visiting Nova Scotia, whether it be Halifax, and check out our episode all about visiting Halifax. So visiting Halifax, the North Shore, the South Shore. Any questions, let us know. Send us a message. Leave us a comment on the blog. We are happy to help plan and answer any inquiry you might have. So anything else you want to add?
No, just make sure you get that lobster grilled cheese sandwich.
If that's your one takeaway from the last 20 minutes,
that would be mine.
You get a lobster grilled cheese sandwich on the Bay of Fundy when you're in Nova Scotia.
Well, when I go back, that's what I want.
Cool. Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time. This was Two Travel Dads Podcast, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Bye, guys.
Two Travel Dads Podcast is written by Rob and Chris Taylor and produced by Rob Taylor in Suquamish, Washington. If you would like to be a guest on the Two Travel Dads Podcast or would like to sponsor it, go ahead and visit us at bit.ly/2tdwork.